Hi, friends. Collin, Sherwin, along with Seth Varnadore. We are here to break down. Normally, we do 3 games. This week, we're only going to do 2, and that's because we're going to really get in on Georgia, Alabama, but which is probably the college football game of the year, bar none. Going into the season, we thought it would be, and now with Nick Saban out on the sidelines, it even becomes more compelling. We'll get into that later. But first, we're going to start with the Golden Knights of Central Florida. They're taking on Memphis on the road. Right now, the Knights are a 3.5-point favorite at DraftKings Sportsbook. Central is just 4-9 in their last 13 against the spread. They are 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 against American opponents. So you'd think that maybe this is a team to fade, but wait, there's more. Memphis is 0-5 in their last 5 games against the spread because Mike Norvell hated covering. But they are 9-0 in their last 9 at home, so they haven't lost 9 in a row in the Liberty Bowl. But we will see here with a new set. Seth, Central blew an 18-point lead at home to Tulsa earlier this year in a game that they probably should have won. What happened there, and do you see them dropping their second game in the league this year?
They had a formula last year of what all their losses were pretty similar. They weren't able to run the ball as efficiently as normal, and they sputtered in the red zone. So if you look against Tulsa, I think they had 125 yards rushing. They had over like 240 in each of the first 2 games. They're secretly, as wide open as they are, they're secretly a really run-heavy team that depends on the run to open up play action and RPO stuff for them. So when their run's not going, their offense sputters a little bit. And then I think they had 2 trips stop inside the red zone. I think they may have even been inside the 10, had to kick field goals when they made, when they missed. So when you're talking about an 8-point game and you're giving away points down there in the red zone, that's not going to be, you're not going to win many times when you do that. But looking at the numbers here, you can see the UCF offense, 12th in the country in yards per play. They're first nationally in yards per game with over like 500 some odd yards per game. Memphis, not too far behind in yards per play at 29th at 6.12. Both offenses are pretty good on third downs. Both defenses not great on third downs. The explosive play numbers are a little skewed because they haven't played as many games as some other teams, but you can still see UCF's very explosive on offense. Memphis, is pretty explosive as well. That 9 is only through 2 games. Where UCF really makes a lot of hay is in the turnover margin, which is not always something that's repeatable. There is some luck in turnovers, but they've been +7 so far this year. They force a lot of them. Memphis is sitting at 0 through 2 games. So when you watch these teams, right, UCF, when they get this run game going, and here's an example, could they hit an explosive run here to go up that 16 points against Tulsa? And then Tulsa kind of shut them down after that. But when this is going, it gets everything else going for them.
And that's just a simple –
just a little counterplay, and once their guys get to the second level, if they can get in there clean, they have so much speed that they can just go. But Tulsa did a pretty good job. You can see here, just their linebacker just knifing through, and Tulsa's got some length. I had a friend before the season. He told me he thought Tulsa win just because they're so long on defense, and UCF's had problems with that in the past. He ended up being right, but something I like to investigate a little further. Here's Memphis.
I was going to say, was that an odd front? Did they switch from odd front to even front as well? Because that's odd
Tulane did some odd front, and then Tulane. Tulsa did some odd front, and they bring guys down and make it functionally a 4-man line, but they kind of change it up, and that's something I think Memphis might do as well. So here they show a kind of functionally a 4-man front, but there are some times in this game where they look like they were in like a 3-3 stack almost, so they're going to change it up too. But they've been able to hold their opponents down in the run game the first couple games. And they've also been – so here you see more of an odd front look, kind of like almost a bear front. But they're not afraid to bring pressure, and that's something else that UCF struggled with the other night is when you bring pressure. So right here I bring it early, or I bring the pressure and I make you throw the ball early. So they do a lot of quick throws, a lot of timing. They were aggressive at defensive back. They were aggressive at the defensive backfield, kind of squatted on routes and brought pressure. So you can kind of see how aggressive they're being. and he kind of forced the ball, get a hand in there, and now you get a pick. But you can see he's all over him. Hands on him up here, hands up here. So Tulsa just came out and was very aggressive on defense. It was kind of, this old Seahawks look of, hey, call interference. But one thing UCF can do in the passing game is if you play enough man, they're going to beat you eventually. They got some big guys, so you got a big receiver there. And then they've got just some speed outside that they can win down the field with. Dylan Gabriel's really accurate thrower. And those guys are so fast, he kind of puts air under the ball. You'll see here a lot of air under it. Let them go get it. Held them up a little bit there. But Memphis struggled in man coverage against SMU. SMU has a really good receiver and a really good quarterback. But you see here, you get beat. Then we drop it down. Now you got to make a tackle. Tackling in space is something you have to do against UCF. Yeah.
That's bad.
But on the other side of the ball, Memphis is going to take shots downfield. They're aggressive on offense. They're going to throw the ball. They obviously don't have their stud running back who opted out, but they still have a lot of guys on offense, and they're going to take shots with 29-year-old quarterback Brady White, who may be coming back to get his doctorate next year. But they're going to take shots, and Tulsa had a lot of success when UCF didn't get pressure. They had some success throwing the ball down the field here.
Got to step on two guys there.
What UCF wants to do defensively is they're kind of high variance. Let's see if we can force turnovers. We're going to blitz. We're going to be aggressive. Give our offense a short field. Then hopefully we get up on you, and you can't come back. Here you see Brady White. He will throw it. He's not afraid to kind of go with the timing to the pressure in his face, but sometimes that backfires against you. And that's kind of what UCF's hoping for. Get some pressure, make a quarterback throw it a little bit early, and maybe be able to get a couple turnovers.
Between White and Gabriel, you can definitely see some turnovers in this game. These are guys that can struggle in that area. 3.5 on the road. Memphis has 1-9 at home. What do you see here? This one's a tough one for me. I don't think either side does anything so specifically well or takes away anything specifically well enough where I could really get a good grasp on this one. This one's tough for me.
Yeah, I would lean, if picking pregame, I'd lean UCF. I just think they always seem to have one game a year where it kind of sputters out for them and they come back with a vengeance. They've been so good on offense, yards per play, and all the efficiency metrics the last 3 or 4 years that I kind of feel like I trust them to come back a little bit more. But you could, if you want to wait and see something in games, look and see how they're running the ball. If they're able to run the ball early, that's going to be if UCF's able to run the ball early, Memphis, I think, is going to have a tough time keeping up with them. If Memphis can stop the run, that's when UCF sputters. So if you want to wait for an in-game edge, I think that's kind of where you want to look. Is UCF able to run the football? If not, then you might want to jump on Memphis with some points.
We will move on to game of the week. Nick Saban in a shark cage, 100 feet high, strung above the stadium. Georgia Bama, the Nictators got COVID. But as you and I said, and first of all, for our friends out there who haven't been named and possibly tracking the line movements, this game was 6.5. It was 6.5 all week, open 6.5, been 6.5 since before the season, kind of. Really, I think actually preseason it was 7.5. Like during the season, it was 6.5. And the reason you could bet it that early was because it was such a big game. And this is a game you could have bet in March just as easily as you can now. Moving down to it now, though, after Saban came down with COVID, the line moved from 6.5 to 4. So Bama is only a 4-point favorite at home, which is very interesting. The bet splits, and if you take a look at them, there's slightly more money now coming in on Georgia than there was before Nick announced his COVID, but not to the point where the line should move 2.5 points. It really doesn't make a ton of sense. I think you and I are in the same boat, which is, it's not that Saban's some sort of like in-game strategy genius, statistically, looking for every edge. It's not like they're going for 2 after the opening touchdown and doing all the weird, Doug Peterson, Sean McVay type of stuff where you're really trying to just grind out every edge on the sideline. Nick's contribution is one, he's built the process and the program. And
his edge is like built in. It's already happened.
Right. It's already in the game plan and everything. So him not standing on the sideline, and I don't care what the rules of football are, he's going to find a way to get in an ear in a press box in the game, whether that's between quarters or on a cell phone or something. I just choose to believe that he's absolutely going to find some way to communicate. It might be in Slack. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's going to find a way to get through. And so his contribution to the game to me is already baked in. So this line moving from 6.5 to 4, is it a Sark tax? Is it like, oh, Steve Sarkisian's going to do something stupid? Which, to be fair,
it's possible.
Well,
I don't know. He probably has a little more fear now than is under Saban. Saban might murder him.
Right.
I think another thing that's overrated is him possibly missing practice and things of that nature. I know most teams aren't meeting in person, so he's not going to miss meetings. They're probably doing meetings still through Zoom or some type of distance. People aren't meeting in person, so he's not going to miss meetings. So he's going to be there for install stuff. He's going to be able to, he'll probably be able to go over the film with them in meetings. So you're not going to miss a ton, this might have helped Georgia out a couple years ago if Kirby got sick and couldn't call that terrible fake punt. But, I don't think it's going to hurt Alabama too much because I don't think they're going to try to do anything crazy. They're just going to let their coordinators call the plays, which I'm sure they do anyways, and just kind of go out and play. There's not going to be much to it, I think. Not enough for 2.5 points.
The line movement on this seems silly to me. It's not going across. The 6 is a somewhat key number. It's not going across any other big ones, but like from 6.5 to 4, I don't quite get it.
Yeah.
So what do you see on the field? The other game number that's interesting here is the total, 56, and I saw it as high as like 59.5 earlier this week too.
Yeah.
Can these teams score on each other? Because we got at least one outstanding defense. And we got a really, I think, any offense that puts up 63 in the SEC can play, and that's what Alabama did last week against Ole Miss.
All right, so when you look at the numbers, the teams are kind of just how you said, they're kind of reciprocal of each other almost, or they're like each other's negative. Georgia in yards per play, 57th on offense out of 76, I think. Second on defense. Alabama's number 1 on offense in yards per play, 53rd on defense. Alabama number 2 on third downs. Georgia's 10th on third down defense. So that's going to be the big matchup, right? Everyone kind of sees that. Neither team's outrageous numbers in turnover margin. And the talent levels, it's, surprising. Georgia's number 1 for the team talent composite, but Alabama's a little bit higher per player average. So these teams are very even. We'll start with the big matchup. We'll start with Georgia's defense and Alabama's offense. One thing about Georgia that I think makes them so good compared to most other teams in college, they're a really good tackling team. You see this come up on third down. A lot of times you get this guy coming across the field. You let him go. He's going to break a tackle and get a first down. They don't miss a ton of tackles. Once they wrap you up, they wrap you up. But then they also will bring disguises and get pressure on you. So here, if you look at the start of the snap here, you've got
that's a cat blitz.
All these guys.
Corner.
Yeah, and they bring the off corner here and get home and force the throw.
That's nuts.
Yes.
Nobody in college is doing that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So and here's another one. So this is in the second half here. Again, a lot of guys at line of scrimmage here. They're going to bring pressure, but they're also going to drop him to play deep half. He's going to play deep half. He's going to kind of jam and come out flat. So it's almost like they go from this one high look to a 2 high, possibly cover 2 type look. Could be a type of quarters, but then you have that. You get pressure, and then your corner squats, and you're able to get an interception, a really good field position. And then they'll just come up and hit you too. So even if you're going to complete passes, they're going to make you pay for the most part. And then getting pressure with 4. They're just so good up front, and they're so diverse schematically that they're just really tough to beat.
They're really well coached.
Yes.
It's a really well coached defense.
So you see here the blitz add on third down. But this is where I think you might see an edge for Georgia is Ole Miss, well, not great on defense, was able to get pressure, And Mac Jones, for the most part, is pretty good with pressure in his face, but his percentages go down. And nobody's really better with pressure, right? And you see here, tackle get beaten pretty easily. So that's kind of, I think, one of the key things to watch in game if you want to bet in game is Georgia able to get pressure with their front four, and are they able to stop the run without bringing extra guys? If they're able to do both those things, then you're probably thinking maybe an in-game under or an edge to Georgia. But Alabama's got so many players. They do so much. I mean, jet sweep to Waddle, who's a freak of nature. And then if you want to play zone, the quarterback's steady enough to hit it in the hole between the defenders in the zone. And now this is something they'll do a lot where they'll bring like a buck sweep this way and then bubble this way, and it's just the quarterback just reading you. If you don't put numbers out over here, I'm going to throw it out there. If you put the numbers out over that, and you'll see later, they run that for a touchdown. So they do a really good job of getting their guys in space and giving their good players the ball.
Now look at those wide receivers block though. Like, are they going to be able to block that Georgia defense out?
Yeah,
that's going to be a lot tougher.
I think that that'll be interesting. And I think the ace up Alabama's sleeve is this running back. He is a freak of nature. Yeah. He could probably be used even more. I think he's really underrated. They use him a little bit to kind of lean on people. Here you'll see a little bit of a tight end, maybe like a tight end throwback type look here, while also with the running back wheel. They're just really creative on offense. But here the second half, they didn't run the ball well in the first half, but the second half they started giving it to their back, and he started picking up chunks of yards. And here's that look. Basically, they'll have something packaged on the other side if you don't defend it. So if you put the numbers out there, we'll give it over here. Then you got to tackle this monster. And then they do a good job of manufacturing their guys on shots. So Tennessee had a couple times where they were able to take shots down the field and had success with it. And you see the jet sweep there. So here's Tennessee. When they didn't have pressure in their face, were able to get some time. This is a great play by the receiver, but still, Alabama's guys are great at the 50-50 ball. And again, you got a little bit of time. Win one-on-one here.
That's still pretty good coverage, though. I mean,
yes, it's a very good coverage.
Yeah, that's tough.
They were able to hit some, and then there wasn't much in the run game, but they got a couple on the perimeter. And you see Alabama that's where they were running the ball pretty much. But this Georgia defense is just relentless, and they're going to try to bring pressure and get you to fumble. The offense, they're kind of, I'd say, above average. So it's kind of, I think this matchup is more about, who do you like? I think this game may turn down to really, who do you like better, Alabama's defense or Georgia's offense? Because the other two, it's going to be pretty evenly matched. This is kind of be where you get your edge. Georgia does some different stuff this year. They get their backs involved in the passing game, use motion, which Alabama had problems with against Ole Miss, and you'll see that. We'll kind of go through in a second what Ole Miss did to just perplex Alabama. But motion, they'll run the quarterback. This guy, he may get broken in half against Alabama, but he's a willing runner. Little trick, you got to reverse when you get the defense flowing hard. And Georgia's got athletes on the offensive side of the ball. It's not like they're recruiting, three stars over there on offense. They got studs everywhere.
Right.
But this is a tight window throw that, is that going to be there against Alabama? I don't know. I saw a stat today that this quarterback had thrown, especially under pressure, him and KJ Costello were basically tied in interceptable pass rating, or percentage of passes that were interceptable. Well, they were very close, 1 and 2. The only difference is KJ Costello has thrown 9 interceptions. Stetson Bennett has thrown 0.
Wow. So
you're thinking that's got to change eventually if you're throwing those balls. Another thing he does a little bit is he'll sit in the pocket a little too long and just kind of fade back. This could very easily have been a strip sack right here.
That's a line. That's a full line breakdown right there.
Yeah, and Tennessee was able to get some pressure on Georgia's offense. So what did Ole Miss do to hurt Alabama? Well, they used a lot of motion, a lot of movement, a lot of misdirection, and a lot of run-pass option stuff. So here, boot, with some movement, making you carry this guy all the way across the field. If you don't, he gets a running start. They use that to their advantage later in the run game. Again, here, misdirection, possibly RPO. Whew. So it's when you saw a hit, you kind of saw a scatter plot of where, or a hit chart of where Ole Miss made their hay in the passing game. It was down the middle of the field. It's because they're running a ton of RPO stuff, pulling linebackers in, then just throwing the ball behind their head. Matt Corral was a 5-star quarterback. He's very talented. Here's another one. Again, make you come up for a run, spread you out, going empty. You come up to fill for a run, we just drop it over your head. RPO.
That's Lane Kiffin, like, really
and
called the game of his life, man. He was really good.
Well, you got Lane Kiffin, and you also got the guy that's been the offensive coordinator at UCF the past 3 years.
Right.
So you're getting that guy mixed with some really elite athletes and a great quarterback. Here's another RPO off the same side counter. Here's another one. So it's, Georgia doesn't run a ton of RPO. So, is that mixed with the tempo? Is that what gave Alabama problems? And then they were able to run the ball pretty well, but they did some interesting stuff. So this is a same side counter. So they're actually going to bring the backside guard. And then the tight end's going to act like he's coming across on like a split zone. So you get some slow down by your backers when they see the split flow. And now they actually bring him back. This is something UCF's done a lot. And it's a really good design. So your linebackers are kind of a step slow. And Ole Miss has a pretty fast back that's able to get out. This is an uncommon thing, so it's tough to fit as a defense.
That's almost like a mini arc block there. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. And then tempo. Georgia's not a high-tempo team on offense. You can see guys are still getting lined up. They actually went overload, so you got 3 receivers down here and your tight end's right here. So there's nobody over there because they went so fast to it. And that's how you get a big run in the run game. So some of it was just great design. It's not necessarily Alabama just not having the guys. Ole Miss did a great job scheming stuff up. Now here's a white cross. This is Georgia likes to run this as well. This is kind of an air raid play. Alabama doesn't exactly cover themselves in glory there, but this is something Georgia will see down the middle of the field. They like to throw this white cross. They hit it against Tennessee. So it's something that I would expect to see. And they use the motion as well. So, and then this is just a really cool design. Why was Ole Miss, do you think, how could Ole Miss run the ball so well? So we saw earlier that guy booted out the first play he booted out was wide open, right? So this is actually a receiver they have playing almost like a fullback. So Alabama decided, all right, we're going to play man on that guy. I'm going to man him up. Well, he runs across the formation to block. He runs with him. And that leaves nobody there for the actual run play. And the back just is able to make a move in the hole. So that's just really good. That's kind of one on design right there. You got some movement too, but that's a really good design in the run game. And then Georgia will take some shots downfield to the slot, and Ole Miss had some success doing that as well. Double moves, taking shots to the slot receiver. So I think the Alabama defense will play better than they did against Ole Miss because Ole Miss did some funky stuff and some unique things that I don't think Georgia's going to be able to replicate. And I think Ole Miss is better on offense than Georgia is. So I would think Alabama's defense will play better. And to me, that's the matchup I've got to pick the game on. If I'm picking really the Alabama defense or the Georgia offense, I'd go with the Alabama defense. I would be very impressed with Georgia if they scored in the 30s or higher this week. I just don't think it's going to happen. So that would make me lean. I think for the game, Alabama is only a 4-point favorite. I would lean towards Alabama.
And then over or under here. What do you think? 56.
I'd probably play under if I had to, but it's something I'd probably stay away from and then play Alabama -4.
So I just don't think both of these teams are going to match up and get in a shootout. I'm leaning under here. I just feel like there are two. First of all, the tempo on these teams isn't so spectacular where you're going to be getting – neither one of these teams is getting 20 possessions. You know what I mean? It's not going to be a great game either. And I just tend to lean under because, especially when they get in the red zones, and these aren't, I mean, we saw some deep shots, but I think you're going to see a lot of teams get in the red zone. And both of these defenses with an end line behind them and two sidelines to work with extra defenders, it's going to be really hard to punch the ball in from inside the 20. So I think we're looking at field goals instead of touchdowns. And I think we're looking at a game with not a ton of pace. If some first to 30 wins, I think for sure.
Yeah, I don't foresee a shootout because I don't think Georgia wants to get in one.
No.
So I think they're gonna play to kind of keep themselves out of one, because if they try to get in a track meet, I think they lose.
Right.
But the Georgia defense is so good that I think they can tamp down Alabama's offense a little bit. I just don't think their offense is good enough unless their defense gives them a lot of short fields, which that'll be, that's turnover. So that's kind of luck, right?
Right, for sure. All right, well, there's our picks for the game of the year. We will be back next week with probably 3 games to take a look at. But otherwise, enjoy the games this weekend and next week. Guess who's back? That's right. Big Ten football, it's back, baby. Let's go. For Seth Varnadore, I'm Collin Sherwin. We will see you next week. I don't know if we're going to break down any Big Ten games because we don't have any game film next week. But, yeah, we might pick 1 or 2, so we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching.